These stories are taken from the book Ivo Hugh, Incline, and Incidents. Ivo Hugh and the Old Bridge. Ivo Hugh is the newest engine on the narrow gauge railway. He loves to puff through the forests and over the rivers. An old bridge crosses one of the rivers. Some of its beams were rotten and had now been damaged by the storm. Ivo Hugh chuffed happily along with a train of empty trucks. He didn't see the broken rail until it was too late. He dangled dangerously above the water. Help! But Duke soon pulled him to safety. A few days later, the think controller came to the sheds. The old trestle bridge has been mended, but the workers' trucks have been left there. Ivo Hugh, I need you to collect them. Yes, sir, chuffed Ivo Hugh. He didn't want to go onto the bridge again. When Ivo Hugh arrived, he saw the trucks on the other side. He started to cross, but stopped. He looked down into the rushing water. Ivo Hugh was scared. He remembered what had happened before. Come on, Ivo Hugh, called his driver. The bridge is safe. But Ivo Hugh wouldn't cross the bridge, and he and his driver went home instead. We'll pick up the trucks, said Duke's driver. If you don't cross the bridge soon, said Duke, the think controller will be cross. Now Duke had to take Ivo Hugh's trains as well as his own. Finally, the think controller came to see Ivo Hugh. If you won't cross the old trestle bridge, you must stay here and shun trains, he scolded. I can't have engines that won't do as they are told. Sorry, sir, said Ivo Hugh sadly. The next morning, Duke is doing his picnic run. He had dropped off all his passengers and was making his way back to the yards to have a rest. But he had puffed so hard that he ran out of water. Bother! The yard manager spread the news. Duke is stuck on the bridge. You must go and help him, Ivo Hugh. Right away, he said bravely. He set off immediately. He was scared but determined. Ivo Hugh rolled up to the edge. The bridge creaked loudly. The river was rushing faster than ever. But Ivo Hugh wouldn't give up. He chopped slowly onto the bridge. The bridge groaned as he rolled forward, but Ivo Hugh puffed on, and finally towards Duke. His driver coupled him up and pulled Duke to safety. Thank you, said Duke. You were very brave to help me. You're welcome, Duke. Ivo Hugh is no longer afraid of the trestle bridge, and he loves his journeys more than ever. Duncan. Rusty, Rheneas, and Skarloey chuffed cheerfully through the Sodor countryside. They were going to help Duncan with an important job at the Incline Railway. The engines enjoyed working at the Incline Railway. They liked the clever way the loaded trucks rolled down the incline, pulling the empty trucks up, but they are always careful. Duncan doesn't like working at the Incline Railway. He is always impatient to get back home. This makes him careless and gets him into lots of trouble. Rusty hoped Duncan would stay out of trouble today, but he was already in too much of a hurry. I'm a plain-speaking engine, gruffed Duncan, so collect your trucks and be quick about it. And off he steamed. Bossy boots, chuffed Rheneas. Pushy puffer, howled Skarloey. Don't call me pushy. They didn't like Duncan telling them what to do. He just wants to get back to the hustle of the junction, Rusty said. Duncan wanted everyone to work faster. You're supposed to be helping me, he grumbled, but you're as slow as snails. Well, we are following the rules, Rusty huffed crossly. We can't set up more than 4 trucks at a time, chuffed Rheneas. Then work faster, said Duncan impatiently. Later that day, Duncan was working at the incline. I'll show you how fast a really useful engine can work, Duncan called as he hastily biffed one truck into another, and then another. Soon Duncan had his 4 trucks. Nothing to it, he boasted to Rusty. Those trucks will pay you back, warned Rusty. Trucks don't like to be biffed. I can handle trucks, he cried. The three engines could see Duncan was not going to listen. They carefully trundled away from the incline with their trucks full of slate. Duncan was so impatient he became even more careless. "Oh, show that smelly diesel and those lazy steamers," he said to his driver. "Careful," cautioned his driver. "You're asking for trouble," and he got it. Duncan didn't know his change was tangled in the coupling of the truck in front of him. Suddenly, he was being pulled up the track by the empty trucks. "Bouncing buffers," he cried. "It's got me." Duncan's driver and fireman jumped clear. Rusty returned to see Duncan being pulled up the incline. "Well, I tried to warn him," said Rusty. "He never listens," his driver said. The chain pulling Duncan's trucks couldn't hold the weight. It suddenly snapped, and Duncan plummeted down the incline. "Help!" he yelled, and falls into a pond. "Glug, glug, glug. Boggle my boiler," he said. Duncan felt foolish and very wet. When the think controller arrived, he spoke severely to Duncan. "You have not been a responsible engine," he said. "Your impatience has caused confusion and delay, and you owe these engines an apology." "Sorry," Duncan said to Rusty, Renaissance Scarlowy. "Once you have been repaired," the think controller said, "you will work the incline until you learn to be patient and careful." "Yes, sir," said Duncan. Rusty and the boulder. High up in the mountains was a mysterious boulder. It had stood alone for a long time, but one day workmen arrived to build a quarry extension on the land below. "Where all this rock coming from?" Peter Sam asked. "The new quarry," replied Rusty. "This mountain rock is good for many things, although it's dangerous up there." "Why?" asked the handle. "Because of a big boulder. I think it's watching me," said Rusty nervously. "How can it be? Boulders don't have eyes." "That as may be, Peter Sam, but there's something strange about this one." Just then, Fred arrived. He was delivering a new piece of machinery for the quarry. "What's that?" asked Rusty. "It's called Dumper. Apparently it helps collect the rocks faster," replied Fred. Soon Dumper was working hard. The men were pleased, but no one bothered to check the boulder. When it rained, the workmen went away. Rusty gazed up and shivered. Above stood Boulder. Suddenly, a large slab of rock landed on the rails. Rusty was shocked. His driver was concerned. "We'd best leave until the weather's better. The rain's loosened some of this rock." "I think it's Boulder wanting us to go away, driver," whispered Rusty. The next day, the sun shone. Dumper was working harder than ever. Suddenly, Rusty noticed something. "Boulder's moving!" "Don't be so daft, it can't," said Rusty's driver. But it could. "It's rolling along our line!" The boulder begins to chase Rusty. "We'll stop here until Boulder passes by," said the driver. But Boulder was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, "Oh no, it's behind us!" Just ahead they saw a small junction. One line went uphill. Boulder thundered past. Meanwhile, Sahanda was making his way up to the quarry. Then he saw Boulder. "Help!" Boulder was catching up to them fast, but they veered into a siding. The boulder destroyed a water tower in the process. "We must warn the yard," shouted Sahando. "Yes," called Rusty. "I'm on it." Boulder rounded the bend and there ahead was Peter Sam. "It's running loose!" he yelled. His driver drove him back as fast as he could. He too veered into a siding, and Boulder went past. "Rather a smash than a squash," sighed Peter Sam. At the yards, Ivo Hugh and Fred were collecting trucks. Then he heard Boulder. "Oh no, it's heading straight for us!" Both engines cleared the way just in time as Boulder crashes into an old shed. When the think controller inspected the damage, he was amazed at how one big boulder could cause lots of trouble. "Perhaps next time we should be more aware of these strange events," he said mournfully. They moved Boulder to a safe place. Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain, and its eyes are being carried on the wind to where once it used to stand proud and silent. I wonder if Rusty is right. Don't you? Duncan gets spooked. The little engines were busy clearing their railway of leaves and broken branches. Ivo Hugh is helping Mr. Hugh and the men clear the line, along with Fred. One day, Ivo Hugh had running low on water, so Fred pushed him to a nearby water tower. Ivo Hugh felt much better after his long drink, but the trucks were bored. Let's break away, they giggled. Their loads were heavy and the couplings old. One snapped. Faster, faster, shouted the trucks. A sign read, slow, steep bends and a ravine ahead, but the silly trucks never saw it. Then it was too late. The trucks derailed and fall into the ravine. Ivo Hugh arrived at the scene of the disaster. His driver sighed. This was our fault. We didn't secure them properly. We had to get help to pull them out. The thing controller would be very annoyed. And he was. You should be more careful in future. Duncan was delighted with Ivo Hugh's dilemma. Fancy not securing your trucks on the hill. They'll come back to spook you. Woo hoo hoo hoo. And who's to say you're not afraid of ghosts? Snapped Scarlowy. Ghosts? Things that go bump in the night. Rubbish. Well, we'll tell you a story that'll make your funnel quiver, Renea said. A long time ago, before you came here, a little engine was returning home. It was a misty moonlit night. As the engine was crossing a bridge, it suddenly lost control, then plummeted over the side into the swamp below. The crew were able to jump clear as his engine disappeared. He was never found again, but many of the workmen and campers will tell you that when the moon is full, they have seen the little engine trying to get home, but he never reaches the other side. So what do you think of that, Duncan? Pa, nonsense! I'd rather go to sleep, thank you. Never mind him, Ivo Hugh. He would be frightened if he really saw a ghost, said Scarlowy. This gave Ivo Hugh's driver an idea. Let's play a trick on Duncan. The next day he spoke to Duncan's driver and fireman who agreed. We'll do it tonight, they said. Duncan had to take coal trucks to the slate mines, and then bring the slate trucks back. Duncan's driver decided as part of the plan to cross the bridge. Haunted bridge, pa, snorted Duncan, is as tame as a pet rabbit. But all the same, he kept thinking about the ghost story. When dusk fell, he was keen to leave. If we don't go now, Scarlet will take my favorite place in the sheds. Sorry, Duncan, we can't go back until we clear all the trucks, his driver replied. He could see that plan was working because Duncan was nervous. When night fell, they set off. The moon was full and the mist were rising around the old bridge. Duncan whistled and the sound echoed everywhere. Then ahead, he saw flickering lights. His driver knew they were fireflies. They were insects that shine brightly at night, but Duncan, the way they were flying around, they made a shape of an engine. Next, his fireman secretly threw a rock from the cab into the ravine below, which created a splash. It echoed all around. It's the ghost! Take me back! Take me back, please! He didn't stop until he reached the quarry, and he closed his eyes tightly. Spooked are you, Duncan? Laughed his driver. No, wailed Duncan, I'm asleep. And he refused to open his eyes. He did though, when he thought his driver wasn't looking, just to make sure he was still there. Don't worry, Duncan, said his fireman. We can rest here for the night. Duncan was relieved. The next morning as the sun shone, Duncan crossed over the old bridge without further incident. He apologized to Ivo Hugh, and he accepted it, and later told the other engines about what he saw that night. Of course, no one would believe him. Neither Scarlowy or Reneas have mentioned that they actually made the story up.